What you just heard, if you don't know, was from Field of Dreams. The story of a humble Iowa farmer named Ray Kinsella with a loving wife and a young daughter. And he, while walking through a cornfield, hears a voice. If you build it, he will come. The voice grabs Ray's attention, and he decides to investigate it more. Now, I'm going to tell you, God comes in many, many different ways to us. It may be through miracles, through visions, through dreams, or it could be just a message in a bowl of alphabet soup. But I'm going to tell you about some others now who had these visions and their stories behind it. First is Moses. Moses was born a Hebrew, but he grew up an Egyptian. One day while Moses was out, he saw an Egyptian kill a Hebrew. And this for Moses was just not the way for him. So he waited till nightfall and he killed the Egyptian. But the only problem was someone saw Moses do that. And when Moses realized that, he fled Egypt. One day while tending a flock of sheep on the side of the mountain, Moses sees this fiery orange glow coming from what he thinks is a bush. So he goes to investigate it more, because this is puzzling to him. And he gets there, and he notices the bush is on fire. But the bush isn't burning up. As Moses moves closer to investigate it more, God speaks to Moses and says, "Moses, Moses." Moses says, "I am here." Moses is very terrified at this point, not knowing what's going on. God says to Moses, "Take off your sandals, for you are standing on holy land." God tells Moses, "I know your people are suffering, and I want you to go to the Pharaoh and tell him to let your people go." Now for Moses, he could have easily turned around once he heard that voice, ran down the side of the mountain and says, "I'm done with this. I'm not listening." He could have easily taken a bucket of water, put the fire out, kept on his merry way. Or he could have just ignored it, got his sheep, and returned home. But Moses didn't. Moses didn't do any of that. He listened and he heard the call. Abram, one night was standing, getting ready for his sleep, and a vision comes to Abram. God says to Abram, "I want you to pack up all your items, all your belongings, leave your house, leave your friends, leave your family." Abram turns to God and says, "Have you seen all the shoes that Sarah has? It would take me years to pack those up, and then to move box after box. I don't know, God, that may not just be what I want to do right now." But Abram listened, packed his belongings, and he moved. He obeyed God. Fast forward a little further. Abram has another vision. It's God again. God says, "Do not fear, I am your defender. I will bring you a great reward." Abram at this time, what does he have to lose? He listened the first time. He's like, "I'm all in for this." That night, when Abram was getting ready to sleep, he saw a vision of a smoking fire pot and torch. This was God's sign that the covenant was coming to Abram. Now Abram, he could have ignored it, could have left, could have stayed home, not even moved, but he didn't. Abram heard the call. Daniel. At this point in Daniel's life, he's about 80 years old, and he has a vision. And it's not one of Daniel sitting by the lagoon pool, enjoying a drink. It's a great war of conflict that is coming. And then for Daniel, being 80 years old, it weighed down on him. And this was something that he was not, ready to take on. But he didn't complain. He didn't say, God, this isn't fair. Why are you doing this to me? He just humbled himself, and he wanted understanding. So he prayed. He prayed for 3 long, dragging out weeks, and there was nothing. He did not get his answer. And at this point, Daniel, he went back to work because he didn't know what else to do. One day working with a group of men on the side of the Tigris River, a vision comes to Daniel. A vision that is more beautiful than a sunset over an ocean. A vision that is greater than the New York City lights from above. Daniel's sitting there looking up at the vision, but none of his men can see it. They think Daniel's crazy. They turn around and run away. They're gone. But Daniel stuck with it. Daniel stayed there, and he listened to the vision. The man in front of Daniel was a man dressed in the finest linen, a belt made of the finest gold, eyes like flaming torches, skin brushed bronze. And he told Daniel, I've heard your prayers. There's just been a little delay in answering them. Now Daniel, when he saw the vision, he could have gotten up, ran away with his men, said, I didn't see anything, denied the whole thing, but he didn't. Daniel heard the call. Now, I can't tell you if W.B. Kinsella, the writer of Field of Dreams, intended for his book to be a parable of what it's like for a Christian to hear God. Only he can answer that. But I can tell you that God comes in many different ways, and sometimes they're just not always clear to us. Have you ever walked through a forest by yourself, listening to the rustling branches and leaves and various little creatures, animals around you? But have you ever listened for God while you were there? Have you ever been home watching TV? Watching, say, CSI, there's a crime scene there. Have you ever looked for God in that crime scene? And for Ray, was the humble Iowa farmer. While in his cornfield, he heard the call and he responded to it. Have you heard the call?